My dear children, come closer and sit beside me. Let this old grandmother tell you a story. It is not a fairy tale. There are no kings, no queens, and no magical endings. It is the story of my own life, a life filled with love, sacrifice, hope, heartbreak, and lessons learned too late. Today, I sit alone in a small house at the edge of a quiet village. The walls are old, the paint is fading, and the clock on the wall ticks louder than ever. Sometimes I think the clock is reminding me that time never waits for anyone. I am 80 years old now. My hair has turned white like winter snow. My hands tremble when I hold a cup of tea. My eyes are weak, but they still carry memories of a lifetime. Many people see me sitting alone and wonder why no one visits me. The answer is painful. I spent my whole life loving people, but in the end, I was left alone. This is my story. The days of happiness. When I was young, life was simple. I was born into a poor family. We did not have much money, but we had love. My parents worked hard every day. My father was a farmer, and my mother took care of us. We were poor, yet we were rich in ways that money could never buy. Every evening, we sat together and shared stories. We laughed over simple meals. We cared for one another. Back then, I believed family was forever. I never imagined that one day I would become a lonely old woman waiting for footsteps that would never come. At the age of 20, I married a hard-working man named Hassan. He was kind, honest, and gentle. We built our life from nothing. Our house was small, but our dreams were big. Soon, God blessed us with children. The day my first son was born, I cried tears of joy. When my daughter arrived a few years later, my heart felt complete. I promised myself that I would give my children everything I never had. And I kept that promise. A mother's sacrifice. Being a mother is not easy. People see the smiles, but they rarely see the sacrifices. When my children were hungry, I ate less. When they needed clothes, I wore old ones. When they wanted an education, I worked day and night. There were nights when I stayed awake sewing clothes for neighbors just to earn a little extra money. Sometimes I hid my tears because I did not want my children to worry. My husband and I worked endlessly. Every penny we earned was spent on our children's future. I remember one winter when we had very little money. My son needed books for school. I sold my wedding jewelry to buy them. Nobody knows how much those jewelry pieces meant to me. But my son's future meant more. Years passed. The children grew up. They went to good schools. Then they went to college. I was proud. Whenever people praised them, my heart filled with happiness. I thought all my sacrifices were worth it. I believed that one day, when I became old, they would stand beside me just as I had stood beside them. But life had different plans. The first signs. As my children became adults, they became busy. At first, I understood. Work is important. Building a future is important. I never complained. When they missed a visit, I said, they are busy. When they forgot to call, I said, they must have a lot on their minds. I always defended them. A mother's heart always finds excuses for her children. But slowly, things changed. The phone calls became shorter. The visits became fewer. The conversations became colder. One day, my daughter visited me after many months. Instead of asking how I was, she spent most of her time looking at her phone. I sat beside her, hoping for a conversation. But she barely looked at me. That day, for the first time, I felt invisible. Losing my husband. Then came the darkest day of my life. My husband became ill. For months, I stayed by his side. I prayed every night. I begged God to let him stay. But some prayers are answered differently. One morning, he took his last breath. The man who had walked beside me for decades was gone. The house suddenly felt empty. The silence became unbearable. I expected my children to stay close during that difficult time. But they all had reasons why they couldn't. One had work. Another had travel plans. Someone else had important meetings. I do not blame them completely. Life is busy. But grief is heavier when carried alone. After my husband died, I felt like half of my soul had left with him. And yet, I continued living. I hoped things would get better. I hoped my family would come closer. Instead, they drifted further away. The betrayal. The real betrayal did not happen all at once. It happened slowly, like a knife that cuts little by little. After my husband's death, my children became interested in something I never expected. My property, the house, the land, the savings. Whenever they visited, they asked questions about money. They rarely asked about my health. One day, my eldest son said, "Mother, you should transfer the house to us. It will make things easier later." I trusted him. He was my son. Why would I doubt him? Months later, the paperwork was completed. The house I had helped build no longer belonged to me. At the time, I did not care. I thought family was family. I thought love was stronger than ownership. How wrong I was. Soon after, everything changed. Their attitudes changed. Their behavior changed. Their respect disappeared. I realized they wanted what I owned, not who I was. That realization broke my heart. The day I became a burden. One evening, I overheard something that shattered me. My children were discussing who would take care of me. Not because they wanted to. Because none of them wanted to. They spoke about me as if I were a problem. A responsibility. A burden. One said, I don't have enough space. Another said, my life is already stressful. Someone else said, maybe she can stay somewhere else. I sat quietly in another room. Listening. Crying. The same children I had carried in my arms. The same children I had protected from every hardship. Now they were trying to avoid me. That night, I cried until sunrise. Not because I was old. Not because I was lonely. But because I realized that love cannot be forced. Living alone. Eventually, I moved into a small place by myself. At first, I told everyone it was my choice. The truth was different. I simply had nowhere else to go. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Months turned into years. Birthdays passed without visitors. Festivals came and went. Sometimes the phone did not ring for weeks. I would sit near the window and watch families walking together. Children laughing. Grandparents holding hands with grandchildren. I smiled for them. Then I cried for myself. The hardest part of loneliness is not being alone. The hardest part is feeling forgotten. The unexpected visitor. One rainy afternoon, there was a knock on my door. I slowly walked to open it. Outside stood a little girl from the neighborhood. She smiled and said, Grandma, are you okay? Such a simple question, yet it touched my heart deeply. She sat with me. She listened to my stories. She laughed at my old memories. Before leaving, she hugged me. That hug healed a wound that had existed for years. I realized something important. Sometimes strangers show more kindness than family. Sometimes love comes from unexpected places. And sometimes the people who owe you nothing treat you better than those who owe you everything. The truth about life. As I grew older, I spent many hours thinking. Thinking about mistakes. Thinking about people. Thinking about life. I realized that expectations create many disappointments. I expected my children to love me exactly as I loved them. But people do not always give back what they receive. Some appreciate sacrifices. Some forget them. Some remember only when they need something. This truth is painful, but it is real. Life does not always reward kindness immediately. Yet that does not mean kindness is wrong. Goodness should not depend on rewards. You should do good because it is right. Not because you expect repayment. What hurt the most? People often ask me what hurt the most. Was it loneliness? Was it betrayal? Was it abandonment? The answer is simple. What hurt the most was watching love disappear. Not suddenly, but gradually, like a candle slowly losing its flame. The children I once knew became strangers. And strangers rarely understand the tears they cause. Yet I chose not to hate them. Hatred is a heavy burden. At my age, I do not want to carry more weight in my heart. I forgave them, not because they deserved it, but because I deserved peace. My final lesson. Now, my dear children, if you have listened this far, I want you to remember something. One day, you will grow old too. One day, your hair will turn gray. One day, your hands will shake. One day, you will look back at your life and ask yourself what truly mattered. And the answer will never be money. It will never be cars. It will never be expensive houses. It will never be social status. The answer will always be relationships. The people you loved. The people you helped. The people you respected. Never ignore your parents while they are alive. Do not wait for funerals to show love. Do not wait for regret to teach gratitude. Visit them. Call them. Listen to them. Hold their hands. Because one day, their chair will be empty. And no amount of tears will bring them back. Remember this. A parent can raise 10 children. But sometimes 10 children cannot take care of one parent. Do not become that kind of person. Success without kindness is failure. Wealth without compassion is poverty. And a life without respect for parents is a life missing its greatest blessing. Today I sit alone. The house is quiet. The years are almost gone. But before I leave this world, I want my story to save someone else's family. If your parents are alive, love them. If your grandparents are alive, cherish them. If someone sacrificed for you, honor them. Because gratitude is one of the rarest and most beautiful qualities a human being can possess. And never forget this final lesson. People may forget what you gave them. They may forget your sacrifices. They may even forget your name. But your character will always remain your true legacy. Be kind. Be grateful. Respect your parents. Love your family while you still have time. Because time is the one thing that never returns. Asterisk. That is my story. And that is my life lesson.